It was a sweltering summer afternoon when Alice Walker, a poised and graceful black woman in a striking red dress, walked into Sweet Smile Bakery, a small cafe tucked into a busy corner of downtown. The heat outside was unbearable, and all Alice wanted was a glass of water to cool down. She approached the counter with a polite smile and gently tapped the bell to get the clerk's attention. Behind the counter stood Lauren, a white saleswoman in her early 30s. With her sharp features and a permanent frown, she barely glanced up from her phone as Alice spoke. "Excuse me," Alice said with a friendly tone. "Could I trouble you for a glass of water? It's really hot out there." Lauren's eyes flicked to Alice, her expression hardening instantly. She sighed dramatically, put her phone down, and folded her arms. "This is a bakery," Lauren said flatly, "not a charity. If you want water, you'll need to buy something." Alice blinked, caught off guard by the response. "I understand," she replied calmly, "but I lost my wallet earlier today. I'm not asking for much, just a small glass of water. Please." Lauren's lips twisted into a sneer. "Look, we're not running a soup kitchen here. I don't know why you people think you can just walk in and demand free stuff." The words hit Alice like a slap. Her heart tightened, but she kept her composure. Taking a deep breath, she replied evenly, "I'm not trying to demand anything. I'm asking for kindness." The cafe grew quiet as a few customers nearby began to take notice of the interaction. A heavy silence hung in the air as Lauren's face twisted in visible irritation. She looked at Alice with disdain, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, you want kindness?" Lauren scoffed. "Fine, here's some kindness for you." Before Alice could react, Lauren grabbed a small cake from the display, a beautifully frosted creation with swirls of whipped cream and colorful sprinkles, and hurled it at Alice's face. The impact was immediate. Cream splattered everywhere, smearing across Alice's face and dress as gasps erupted from the other customers. Alice stood, frozen for a moment, the humiliation sinking in. She reached for a napkin and slowly wiped her face, her hands trembling slightly, but her expression resolute. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Lauren crossed her arms smugly. "There. Now you've got your kindness. Happy?" Alice didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked Lauren in the eyes, her voice steady but filled with quiet strength. "Do you feel better now?" she asked softly. Lauren rolled her eyes and muttered, "Maybe next time you'll think twice before begging for something you don't deserve." Alice held her head high. Despite the cake dripping from her chin and the whispers around her, she radiated dignity. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the bakery, leaving behind the stunned patrons and a deeply smug Lauren. But Lauren had no idea who Alice really was or what was about to come next. The bakery had settled back into its usual rhythm. Lauren, still basking in her perceived triumph, returned to her spot behind the counter with a self-satisfied smirk. She chatted with a co-worker, dismissing the incident with Alice as nothing more than an amusing story to share. "Did you see her face?" Lauren snickered, mimicking the way the cake had splattered. "Maybe next time she'll think twice before coming in here, begging for handouts." Her co-worker, a younger woman named Jenna, shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know, Lauren," she said hesitantly. She didn't seem like she was trying to cause trouble. "It's just water." Lauren waved her off. "Oh, please. People like her are always trying to get something for nothing. It's about time someone put them in their place." Jenna bit her lip but said nothing. She knew Lauren's temper too well to argue. About 30 minutes later, the small bell above the door jingled again. The chatter in the cafe quieted as a tall, sharply dressed man entered. He exuded confidence and authority, his tailored navy suit and polished shoes making him stand out in the casual bakery. His dark skin and commanding presence turned heads as he walked to the counter with measured steps. It was David Walker, Alice's husband. Lauren didn't recognize him, but the room seemed to sense the shift in energy. He glanced around, his eyes scanning the bakery before settling on Lauren. She immediately straightened up, plastering on her customer service smile. "Welcome to Sweet Smile Bakery," she said in her cheeriest voice. "How can I help you today?" David approached the counter slowly, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried an edge of authority. "Are you Lauren?" he asked. Lauren blinked, her smile faltering. Yes, that's me. Why?" David nodded, his gaze steady. "You're the one who threw a cake in my wife's face earlier today." The words hit Lauren like a punch to the gut. Her eyes widened and the color drained from her face. The other customers, sensing the tension, began to murmur among themselves. Jenna froze, her eyes darting between David and Lauren. I didn't realize," Lauren stammered, her voice cracking. "I mean, she just—" David raised a hand, silencing her. His voice remained even, but the weight of his words filled the room. "She came in here asking for a simple glass of water. You humiliated her in front of everyone. Do you think that's how you should treat people?" Lauren's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She was at a loss for words. I didn't know she was your wife," she finally managed, as if that excused her behavior. David's jaw tightened, but his voice remained composed. "And if she wasn't my wife, would that make what you did acceptable?" Lauren shrank under his piercing gaze. The room had fallen completely silent, every pair of eyes fixed on the scene unfolding before them. Jenna looked as if she wanted to disappear into the floor. "I own this bakery," David continued, his tone sharp enough to cut through the air. "And I have worked hard to build a place where everyone feels welcome. What you did today goes against everything this business stands for. I will not tolerate it." Lauren's knees felt weak. "Please, Mr. Walker," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to throw a cake in someone's face," David interrupted, his voice rising just slightly. "Don't insult me." The other customers began murmuring again, some nodding in agreement with David's words. Lauren looked around, realizing that no one was on her side. "You're fired," David said firmly. "Pack up your things and leave, now." Tears welled up in Lauren's eyes as she tried to find a way to salvage the situation. "Please, Mr. Walker, I need this job." David shook his head, his expression unwavering. "You should have thought about that before treating someone so cruelly. Actions have consequences. You can leave quietly, or I can call security. Your choice." Lauren looked to Jenna for support, but Jenna avoided her gaze. Realizing she had no way out, Lauren slowly nodded and walked to the back room to gather her belongings. The other employees exchanged nervous glances. Unsure of what to say, David turned to the remaining staff. "Let this be a lesson. This bakery is a place of respect and kindness. If anyone can't uphold those values, they don't belong here." The employees nodded quickly, grateful they weren't in Lauren's position. David adjusted his suit and took a deep breath before stepping outside to find Alice waiting by the car. Her face softened when she saw him, and a small smile played on her lips. "You didn't have to do that, you know," she said gently. David took her hand in his. "Yes, I did. No one treats you like that, not here, not anywhere. And they needed to know that." Alice squeezed his hand, her smile growing. "Thank you for standing up for me." "Always," he replied, leaning in to kiss her on the forehead. Together they left, leaving behind a bakery that had just learned a hard but necessary lesson. The news of what had happened in Sweet Smile Bakery spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Customers who had witnessed the incident recounted the story to friends, family, and co-workers, and soon it was the talk of the town. Social media posts began circulating with captions like, "Owner stands up for his wife against discrimination and justice served at local bakery." Lauren's dismissal left the remaining staff shaken but reflective. Jenna, the young employee who had witnessed everything, felt both relieved and inspired. The following morning, she approached David as he conducted a staff meeting to address the incident. "Mr. Walker," she began nervously, "I just want to say thank you. I should have said something when it happened. I didn't, and I feel terrible about that." David turned to her, his expression softening. "Jenna, we all have moments when fear or hesitation gets the better of us. What matters is that you've learned from it. Moving forward, I expect every employee here to speak up if they see someone being mistreated." She nodded earnestly. "I will. I promise." Over the next few weeks, David implemented changes to ensure that the bakery upheld the values of kindness and respect. He introduced mandatory training sessions for the staff on customer service and unconscious bias, emphasizing the importance of treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their background. Alice, though shaken by the initial incident, became a quiet but powerful symbol of change. She began visiting the bakery more often, not out of obligation, but to ensure it became the welcoming space her husband envisioned. Customers who recognized her from the story would often approach her with kind words. "Thank you for standing up for yourself," one older woman said during a visit. "You've shown all of us that we don't have to accept disrespect." Alice smiled warmly. "Thank you, but it's my husband who deserves the credit. He's the one who made things right." The bakery's regulars noticed a transformation in the atmosphere. The employees were more attentive, more thoughtful, and the sense of community grew stronger. What had once been just another cafe now felt like a place where everyone belonged. Lauren's life took a sharp downturn after her firing. Her behavior at the bakery had been exposed online, and the backlash was swift. She tried to defend herself in a post claiming she was being unfairly judged, but her excuses only fueled the criticism. "Throwing a cake in someone's face isn't a misunderstanding," one commenter wrote. "It's pure cruelty." Faced with mounting public pressure, Lauren took down her account and disappeared from social media altogether. She struggled to find another job as her reputation preceded her wherever she applied. Eventually, she began to reflect on her actions, realizing the depth of her mistake and the pain she had caused. One quiet afternoon, several weeks after the incident, Alice returned to the bakery. She sat in her favorite corner, enjoying a cup of tea and reading a book. The door jingled, and to her surprise, Lauren walked in. She looked nothing like the confident, smug woman from before. Her shoulders were hunched, her face pale, and her eyes filled with uncertainty. Alice put down her book as Lauren approached her table hesitantly. "Mrs. Walker," Lauren began softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if you will even want to hear this, but I need to say it." Alice folded her hands in her lap, her expression calm. "Go on." Lauren took a deep breath, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm sorry. What I did to you was wrong. It was cruel, and I have no excuse for it. I've lost my job, my reputation, everything. And I know I brought it on myself, but I wanted you to know that I regret what I did more than I can say." Alice studied her for a moment, her gaze steady. She could see the sincerity in Lauren's trembling hands and hear it in her voice. After a pause, she nodded. "I appreciate your apology," Alice said gently. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. But the harm you caused doesn't disappear overnight. What matters is what you do moving forward." Lauren nodded quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'll do better, I swear." Alice reached into her bag and pulled out a napkin, offering it to Lauren. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said. "What defines us is how we grow from them." Lauren took the napkin, her hands shaking. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. As Lauren left the bakery, Alice felt a sense of closure. She didn't condone what had happened, but forgiveness was a powerful step forward for both of them. Months later, Sweet Smile Bakery became known not just for its delicious cakes and pastries, but as a beacon of inclusivity and compassion. David and Alice's story continued to inspire the community, and the bakery thrived as a result. Alice often reflected on how a moment of cruelty had turned into an opportunity for growth and change. She knew that while the world wasn't perfect, it was small victories like this that brought people closer to justice and understanding. As she sipped her tea one afternoon, watching the bustling cafe filled with laughter and warmth, she smiled. This was the world she and David were building, one small act of kindness at a time. Alice, initially hesitant to return after her humiliation, became an integral part of the bakery's transformation. At David's urging, she took on an advisory role, helping to oversee the new training programs and community outreach initiatives. Every week, Alice held informal discussions with the staff, sharing her perspective on the importance of empathy and respect in customer service. Her calm, steady voice carried the weight of her experience, and the employees listened intently. "Every person who walks through that door has their own story," she reminded them during one meeting. "You don't know what struggles they're facing or what burdens they carry. A little kindness can mean everything." The bakery's journey inspired many in the town to take a closer look at their own attitudes and behaviors. Local businesses began adopting policies and training sessions focused on respect, inclusion, and customer service. Some even reached out to Alice and David for guidance. Alice's philosophy of kindness resonated deeply. She often said, "Kindness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the glue that holds communities together." Her words became a mantra in the neighborhood, and soon the town saw a shift in how people treated one another. Local schools incorporated her story into their curriculum, using it as an example of standing up against injustice and finding strength in dignity. Teachers led discussions on empathy, and students participated in acts of kindness challenges, creating a ripple effect of goodwill. Sweet Smile Bakery didn't stay a local legend for long. The story of the bakery's transformation caught the attention of a regional news outlet, which featured Alice and David in a heartfelt piece titled "From Humiliation to Hope: How One Woman's Strength Changed a Community." The article went viral, and soon larger media outlets picked up the story. Journalists from across the country came to the bakery to interview the walkers. Alice, initially hesitant to be in the spotlight, realized the power of sharing her experience. During one particularly moving interview on a morning talk show, Alice recounted the incident with grace and poise. "I could have responded with anger," she said, "and I wouldn't have been wrong to do so. But I chose to stand in my dignity because I wanted to be an example, not just for myself, but for everyone who's ever been treated unfairly. Sometimes, the best way to fight back is to rise above. Her words struck a chord with viewers, and the bakery became a symbol of hope and resilience. Orders flooded in from people across the country who wanted to support the business. David expanded their operations, opening an online store where customers could order their famous cakes and pastries. Lauren, the disgraced former employee, was quietly working on her redemption. She continued to volunteer at community events hosted by the bakery and eventually enrolled in a culinary training program. She discovered a passion for baking, something she had never pursued seriously before. One day, she approached David and Alice with a proposal. "I've been working on a project," she said nervously, holding out a small box of cupcakes. "I wanted to make something that represents what I've learned. I call them second chances." Inside the box were beautifully decorated cupcakes, each topped with a small sugar flower. Alice picked one up and took a bite. The flavors were delicate and perfectly balanced. "These are incredible," Alice said, smiling. "You've come a long way, Lauren." Lauren blushed, a mix of relief and pride washing over her. "I wouldn't be here without you both. You showed me that it's never too late to do better." David nodded thoughtfully. "We all deserve a second chance. Let's add these to the menu." The cupcakes became an instant hit, not just for their taste, but for the message behind them. Lauren's story became part of the bakery's legacy, a reminder that change is possible, even for those who have made serious mistakes. With their growing success, Alice and David decided to give back in a meaningful way. They established the Sweet Smile Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting kindness, equality, and opportunity. The foundation hosted workshops on empathy and bias, provided scholarships for underserved youth, and supported local businesses committed to inclusive practices. They also partnered with community leaders to address systemic issues like racial discrimination and economic inequality. Alice became the face of the foundation, her calm yet powerful presence inspiring others to join the cause. At one event, she shared a message that encapsulated the heart of their mission. Kindness isn't passive, it's an action, a choice we make every day. It's about seeing the humanity in others, even when it's hard. That's how we create a better world. One sunny afternoon, the bakery hosted a community celebration to mark the one-year anniversary of its transformation. The event was filled with laughter, music, and of course, delicious pastries. Customers, old and new, gathered to celebrate what Sweet Smile Bakery had become, a place of warmth and belonging. As the event wound down, a young woman approached Alice with a shy smile. She held a small notebook in her hands. "Mrs. Walker," she said softly, "I just wanted to say thank you. Your story gave me the courage to stand up for myself at work. I was being treated unfairly, but I remembered how you stood tall, even when it wasn't easy. It helped me find my voice." Alice's eyes welled with tears as she embraced the young woman. "Thank you for sharing that with me," she said. "You're stronger than you realize." As the sun set over the bustling bakery, Alice and David stood together, watching the celebration unfold. The light from the string lights overhead reflected in Alice's eyes as she looked around at the community they had helped build. "This," David said, wrapping an arm around her, "is what happens when people believe in something bigger than themselves." Alice nodded, her heart full. "It all started with a single glass of water," she said with a small smile, "and look where we are now." Sweet Smile Bakery was no longer just a place for cakes and coffee. It had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience, kindness, and the belief that even the smallest actions can spark profound change. And as the bakery doors closed that night, the legacy of Sweet Smile continued to grow, one act of kindness at a time.